Welcome to First is Everything, a brand new series from New York Festivals dedicated to firsts in automotive. Hey everybody, and welcome to First is Everything. I'm joined by Jon Pearce today, Global Chief Creative Officer of Hudson Rouge. I have a little bio about you that I will dive into because I don't want to get any of these facts wrong. Jon Pearce, Global Chief Creative Officer of Hudson Rouge, who since its inception has been the driving force behind the reinvention of Lincoln Motor Company. His work has infiltrated culture, spoofed by everyone from Ellen DeGeneres to Saturday Night Live. I'm pretty sure you guys probably know what I'm talking about. And in 2020, his agency was named Agency of the Year by Media Post. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Great to be here.
Yeah. I don't feel like we could do a show about firsts if we didn't go back to the very, very beginning. So who was Jon before the ad?
Oh, man. Before I added the umlaut over my O. Jon was actually born here in Manhattan. Well, we're in Brooklyn, but over the bridge. And my parents got me out when I was young, getting into a bad crowd. And I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey. And you're probably wondering, when was your first marketing experience?
Yeah, sure. Let's go there.
That was the JP Candle Company. Quality candles, reasonable prices. I think I was 12.
Okay.
And I came across the sales sheet the other day where I had illustrated all the candles and the prices, and I'd get the paraffin bars and bring it into my mom's kitchen and melt the wax down and go door to door and sell them. It was fun. It was fun, and the marketing of it, and just sort of being a professional. But what else? What else can I tell you? Jon went to college in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Went to Haverford College. I was a liberal arts major, history major, and then I worked for an area newspaper actually when I got out of school, selling advertising. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Making cold calls. I was the enemy. I was the guy walking in the door trying to sell them a space and a promise that it was going to result in more Strombolis sold or more people coming into the gas station. And that's where I had an epiphany. I started to create ads for them to say, this is what you could get for your $120.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. People started to envision what they'd get for that ad space. And I realized I liked that better than selling. So I came to the city and started answering phones for NWA, which is a defunct agency, one of America's oldest agencies before they went under, and started putting a portfolio together. I went to SVA, School of Visual Arts, took concept classes, and I was so green. But I learned what a concept was.
Yeah. And
probably when it clicked was like seeing one of those old classic Timberland ads, and it was like an old geezer prospector holding up a boot, and the headline was, hasn't taken a leak in 10 years. I just, that's great.
It's awesome.
It's not a leak, it's the boot leaking, and it's like, it clicked for me. And then my first account was the Army account. I remember when I started at this agency, I said I was green. There was a connection from Haverford who said, oh yeah, I can have you talk to Susan, and she's on the Army, so and I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
I mean, the Army account, not she's in the Army, it was an account. And I eventually started writing for them, for the Army account. And my first concept that I sold was for the satellite communications systems. And the headline was, learn to prepare this dish in just under 30 minutes. So I borrowed heavily from the Timberland turning phrase, and the rest is history. I was off. Yeah.
You're just hooked.
I was. I liked the thrill of hitting on an idea, doing something clever.
So you're selling advertising.
Yeah.
What made you want to dive into development? Was it to sell more of the space?
Yeah. It was survival.
Cool.
I just wanted to keep my job, even though I hated it. I wasn't successful at it, So I guess maybe there's a life lesson.
Find a way to be successful.
Find a way to be successful, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't a good put your foot in the door, do a cold call. So I found something to give to them in return.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
And were you said you were a copywriter first,
Yeah.
all the way through.
Yeah.
But were you drawing and illustrating and bringing to life the ads?
Yeah,
or?
I grew up in a house. Both my parents went to art school.
Okay.
And my dad was a creative director of a printing firm. So he designed annual reports, very different from ads, but he still, knew about typography and layout, and he would bring home all kinds of paper stocks and markers for me when I was little. So I feel like we always had stuff in our house to create things with. My mom was a fashion illustrator, so even though I turned out to be a writer, I think I always had my eye and kind of artistic side developed. But yeah, I'd like to think that even today, I'm a creative director who, while words are my specialty, I have a purview over everything and an eye for photography and design and color, impact, simplicity.
You grew up in it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I grew up in it.
So
I should do it.
You should.
I should do it well.
Yeah. I think you do.
Thanks.
That's great. And so, it doesn't sound like there was a lot of like automotive or car in your early. Like, when did that sort of come in? Have you always been a car person? Or
Well, I worked in California for many years. And I've always said in California, especially LA, it's cars and tech.
Yeah.
So I spent time at Ruben Pasteur on Honda, many years at Team One on Lexus, and I freelanced for a good amount too and touched a lot of other cars. So when I came to New York, we moved our family in 2010. I went to BBH for a spell. It looked like it was going to be on Cadillac, but Cadillac parted ways with them. So instead it was Johnny Walker and Westin Hotels and Unilever, Vaseline.
Yeah.
There's a trio. There's a party for some.
Yeah.
And then there was an opportunity to actually start the agency to serve Lincoln. So that was a decision WPP had made to give them their own bespoke agency. And so, you don't get too many opportunities like that to hire people, find a space, really design an agency from the ground up. And so we did. And we called it Hudson Rouge. And here I am, 11 years later.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So Hudson Rouge, you've been there 11 years.
Since the inception,
Since the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and no regrets. It's been a fantastic ride, a fantastic chapter.
Yeah.
The opportunities, especially for a brand like Lincoln, I think, when they were looking for a new agency in New York with a new talent pool, so much energy behind wanting to transform, and it's a legacy brand. I think the Ford family is still very involved in the business, Ford and Lincoln, and they didn't want to see Lincoln go away as a brand. Started by Edsel Ford back in the early days, and it's a great mark.
So what was the first car account you worked on?
The first full-time job on cars was Ruben Pasteur, working on Honda.
And so from then on, it's just been a lot of automotive and...
Yeah. But listen, automotive is one of those, it's a niche area that isn't so niche when you start working in it, because I think, as you know, cars are part of culture. Cars, and I tell, prospective creative hires this, if they haven't worked on cars, you will be stretched working on vehicles, because the budgets are sizable, right? You have to stay visible in a very competitive market. But cars touch us in lots of different ways. You have to walk the walk as a car brand. Aside from being probably the most complex consumer good you can buy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's this widget you can hold in your hands and shoot once and that's it. It's got facets, exterior, interior, engine. There are things to talk about.
And it's a big decision, right?
Huge.
It's a second biggest purchase that a consumer will make besides their home.
Yeah, it's not gum at the checkout register. It's a considered purchase, and I've always said, it's head and heart, right? You want to know the mechanics, that it works well, that Consumer Reports gives it a high rating, but you also want to be proud of it in your driveway. You want the neighbors to pass by and go, oh, Joe looks like he's doing okay.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's a really interesting area to be for us as marketers, right? Working the head and heart equation. There's a lot you can do in terms of partnerships, in terms of the execution, you know, the music choices you make, the directors, the imagery. No, it's been great. We've done so many things in culture, I think, that I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to do if it was another category, another sector.
Cars really do impact us in a great bigger sense than just like an average purchase or something that you get at the register, like you said. It really is, it's culturally a part of our fabric of who we are.
Yeah.
And that, so, and you mentioned that you love to do things that, you've loved to be able to impact culture in different ways through the work that you've done. Is there, what's kind of stands out for you?
Well, I'll go back to Lincoln days. One of the first things we did out of the gate, we came up with a campaign called Hello Again. Yeah. And it was basically saying hello to a 90-year-old brand that you probably don't know. So say hello again to the Lincoln Motor Company. And we knew that the people we were going after, cultural progressives, curious about the world, into music, film, art, a subset of the affluent customer, but a big enough subset that it could make a real difference for Lincoln. So we did a campaign touching different kinds of cultural pieces, music, film, art, photography. And we got to partner with Beck on one. And Beck was always one of my heroes in music. So the fact that you get to work with your heroes in advertising, that's another...
It's really cool.
Right? Kind of pinch me, yes, this is a good job, a good career.
Yeah.
So we basically brought Beck in and decided we were going to say hello again to a piece of music, David Bowie's Sound and Vision.
Wow.
So we worked with him, and he brought in 165 musicians from totally different walks of life. A yodeler, you know, metal guitars, gospel choir, right, really diverse, and staged around him in a live event that we shot at the Sony Studios in LA. But we also designed it as a digital event. So the goal was to, and I know you had the Cool Hunting guys in here earlier, invite in publications like Cool Hunting and Rolling Stone, Gizmodo, Fast Company, all these places that weren't, I mean, Lincoln was not on anybody's radar at the time. So we brought in, you know, writers, cultural influencers, staged this thing, kind of a theater in the round with a rotating stage. But then we brought in director Chris Milk, working with Radical Media, and he designed a system that would record sound in 360 on this rotating stage with these microphones that we called binaural heads. So there was a huge techie aspect to it too, so that at home, you know, there were only a couple hundred people that made it to the event. You could watch this on your laptop, and actually the camera would read which way your head was turning. You could turn the stage and hear in true 360 sound the yodeler, the metal guitars, the gospel choir, all rendering this 10-minute Sound and Vision song. It was probably one of the best things we ever got to work on. I mean, Lincoln gave us a lot of creative control. The branding was minimal, so it ended up as this cultural artifact that actually moved people, right? And I don't think there are a ton of times you can say that in your career where you can make something that is so pure, that you're so proud of, but it worked. I mean, all those magazines and publications that I mentioned wrote about Lincoln and this great thing that they did. So to me, it's a great example of doing something you're proud of, but also something that got into culture in the right way, you know, for all the right reasons.
Yes, yes. And reintroducing the brand.
Yeah. Suddenly Lincoln was being talked about. Our top client said, I just want Lincoln talked about again.
Yeah.
So we achieved that goal.
Excellent. So when you're approaching work that needs to be based in culture and defined in a way that speaks to a specific subset in this really fractured sort of media environment, how do you really like lean into those and bring them to life so it can extend beyond just the few people that can be there?
No, it's a great question. We're always looking for scalability, right? I mean, and you know, it's an investment from a client standpoint. You want to make sure that your ROI is worth it. So we're always kind of thinking about that, building in what's the film version going to be, what's the user at home experience going to be like versus what's there in person. I wouldn't say that there's one playbook for that. I think it depends on the idea. We just did something late last year to help introduce the idea of scent in Lincolns. And we staged something at Art Basel because we're always trying to piggyback on a cultural moment, and we knew that the cultural progressive target was down there. It's become super popular. And we staged it like it was an actual fragrance launch with Serena Williams. So amazing. Serena is one of the brand ambassadors for Lincoln. We also have hotel partnerships. So the SLS Hotel is a partner. So we staged this big sort of press conference, panel talk, and we created things like a pop-up storefront. We brought a whole bunch of influencers in, we flew them in, and they were all sort of part of the ruse of this fragrance launch, and was this Serena's next step after her retirement from tennis. So, there was something for the several hundred people down there, but cameras were rolling, going out to all the influencers and their followers, going out to Serena's 13, 14, 15 million followers in social, more than Lincoln's. So orchestrating it that way, really taking advantage of the audience that's out beyond the event itself. But that was a lot of fun. That was a success, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the campaigns you're building are really complex in the amount of moving parts.
Totally.
Like, how big is your team that helps you manage that?
It's a great question. They're not big. They're really small. And I think it's, anytime a freelancer comes through the agency, they're amazed at how few people we have, producing all this work. We're always busy. And I don't know, maybe it is the fact that we're such a small team. We know each other really well. We like each other. And everybody's accountable. I think, you've been part of lots of agencies. I have too. There are things that happen in this business like, where you put multiple teams on, or you do a hot house, where you bring in 20 teams and you sift through the work, and then maybe there's one good thing in there. And I think it's about accountability. If someone knows in their heart that I'm tossing stuff onto the bonfire here, they're not digging deep. Whereas at our agency, even if it's a less senior team, a junior team, they're getting ingratiated, into the serious stuff very, very quickly. We grow them fast at Hudson Rouge, is what we say, and I think it's giving them that responsibility. So everybody takes it really seriously and plans that out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the business has gotten so complex. Back from my humble beginnings, where a print ad. I remember at the agency, there were all these middle-aged guys, mostly guys, a few women, but mostly guys, who would just have like a print ad to work on for, it seemed like forever. They'd be kind of walking the halls and taking lunch, and it's just like kind of looking at the line and moving, something over, and it's like, we don't work like that anymore.
Just slightly adjusting the kerning.
Yeah. And there was a mystery to creative too, right? Because it's, that was really before the iPhone democratized everything. Everybody's a filmmaker now. Everybody's a photographer. Years ago, I'm sure when you got in the business too, it was a specialized. There was a little bit of mystery and magic behind the creative process, and I think everybody is kind of has a foot in that now. So
yeah, everybody. I mean, there's so many creative parts that now have to come into play, whether it's from production or creative itself, or from the client on how they're going to make this thing work, and like everybody's contributing to it because there's so much more you have to do.
That's right. How do you deal with that?
No flipping the script.
Okay,
good, John.
All right. I'm just curious.
It's complicated.
I want to learn.
Think you nailed it with there's no one answer. Like, every project is different, and they all have the same demands. They always have they need the same reach and results that they've needed, if not more.
Yeah.
And you just have to approach it project by project.
I think so. I think once you start getting into playbooks and plans, or this is how we did it last time, You can't win. You can't win that way. Some things,
Yeah.
I mean, you accrue knowledge and skills, but I don't know. With today's media landscape, I feel like you have to go in with your eyes open and approach each thing as its own unique, sort of complicated, I guess, orchestration. It's a mosaic, right?
Yeah.
But we try.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was how, because I've read great things about the culture, and you talked about how your people is a small team and they know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this built-up trust that's involved in that. It's like, how did you as a leader foster that?
It's a great question. I don't think I have any major philosophy except to treat other people the way I would want to be treated. We all know what it feels like to work on a project and then get feedback that's less than complete, or just this isn't right. So I actually take the time to give very detailed reactions. Probably some say too detailed, but I'm not helicoptering. I mean, it's I guess that's the other thing. It's like, I respect the creatives. They're there for a reason, and it's even when I disagree with someone, I'll tell them why I disagree. But I'll say, look, if you feel strongly, tell me why. I'm fair, right? And I think there's I don't want to speak for my creatives, but I think they realize that I'm fair, or that's what I aim to be, right? There's no mercurial ownership, ego thing. I've made lots of things. I don't need to make something personally, so I'm not putting my ideas in. I'm not in competition with my team, so we can start there, because I don't think that's a given everywhere, right? If you're in a leadership position and you're tossing in ideas, the deck is stacked against the creatives, and I think you kind of wear through your welcome and the trust really, really quickly, and that's a hard thing to get back. Mm-hmm. So, and then I guess just staying human, right? I mean, I don't know it all. I actually look to our younger creatives for advice on some things. TikTok, I'm not a native.
Yeah.
They are. They grew up with it, and I think that's also what's really interesting now. Back to the older guys walking the floor, taking 3 weeks on a print ad. We were in awe of them because we knew nothing, and they treated us that way. And now it's flipped, right? Mm-hmm. Talk about flipping the script. I mean, today's creatives are coming into the agency with a completely different native experience than myself or you.
Yeah, and definitely. And so, pulling that back to Lincoln and how a big mass brand, like an automotive account, mm-hmm. What are ways, or how do we communicate with such a different mindset of a consumer that's growing up, especially when you're looking at it through the lens of a legacy brand? Yeah,
that's great. I'm lucky because in order to afford a Lincoln, you're probably not 25.
It's true.
So I'm in real trouble, as soon as 20-year-olds are buying Lincoln. So it's probably a good brand for me to work on, right? Because I identify with the target. So I think a lot of that is just innate, but it's a really good challenge for, we've been in pitches for things that are going to a target that's younger than me. And that, again, I go back to the experts, the younger creatives, and I'm going to take their word for it about street culture or fashion, things like that. I mean, I stay up to date as I can, but that's work. That's another job. I mean, it's a good thing that I love culture, right? So I've always been a sponge. Love TV, movies, art, photography, fashion, so I'm soaking up as much as I can. But I notice I'm going to my 15-year-old daughter more often on music now. And she thinks it's really weird when I sit on the couch and watch TV with her because she's watching YouTube, right, on the TV. So, but I just want to see where she's going from what to what to what, because I never grew up watching TV that way. But I think it's really important to understand.
For Lincoln in general, you've maintained, even in this fractured environment, you've maintained this consistency over the years, right?
We've tried.
Yeah, I mean, but it's really worked, right?
Yeah, no, it has. I mean, I think look outside, and our mission has always been make Lincoln more well known and lower the median age, and we've done that. I think that their sales are a testament to that. And if you look at who's driving Lincolns today versus, 3, 5, 8 years ago, they're different. I know in my neighborhood, I live in a town in New Jersey, Montclair. When I moved there, you didn't see many at all. This is 7 years ago we moved there. Yeah. And today it's a whole different game. So that's a testament to the design. I think they've got their design language really tight right now. I think they've come out with some models that just appeal to a younger buyer, and maybe a little bit the marketing has helped, but I think it starts with the product. And I think too, even our strategic work has helped create sort of the vision for the brand. I don't want to overreach and say that we did it, but I think, when we show up as partners, right? And we have insights about the brand and what it can be and the space they can own. And I think you have to get product and marketing and comms all singing the same song.
Together, flat, together.
Yeah. It's got to jibe. Otherwise, it's a fractured brand, a little schizophrenic.
So we're here, it's Auto Show Week in New York, and it's a big week for cars. Are you looking forward to seeing anything here?
I am. I mean, auto shows in general have become less relevant, in the last few years. I think there's a lot of brands sitting out the shows. It's a huge investment, to put on that stage and get the people to work the shows. But, it's still interesting. It's the one time you can go and sort of comparison shop. Look at how they're branding themselves, look at the new models, rather than getting in your own vehicle on a weekend and stopping at 10 different dealerships. You're walking the floor. And that's fun. It's fun to kind of see, what new brands there are, the advances in tech, what people are talking about. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really fun to walk the floor and see what's out there. And in terms of like a luxury brand, creating experiences here, do you see as you cruise around and you check things out in the showrooms, do you see the definition of luxury changing?
Definitely. I think over the last decade we've seen luxury sort of let its hair down. I think you look at the influence of Scandinavian design, right, and what Volvo's doing. Open pore woods on the dash. It's not all high gloss, shiny. I mean, so many brands put the wood in the car, but then they gloss it with several coats of lacquer, and it kind of looks like plastic. So and people don't buy furniture like that. So why should their car be like that? You can see just the open pore wood, the satin finish. It feels more like a nice piece of Scandinavian furniture. That's Volvo, but Lincoln's also embracing that too. So I think designed that way, it just feels more approachable, more like it integrates into your life, less like the white glove chandelier, caviar, shiny lacquer world, and more of the, I'm wearing a really expensive shirt with my ripped jeans and a baseball hat kind of look. And it's been a journey. I think Lincoln has done a great job of recognizing this new customer that walks in, and you look at all the tech millionaires and billionaires that have been coined in the last 10, 20 years. It's a different kind of person who's coming in with that kind of money to be able to sink into a luxury car. So I think the brands see that and they're evolving, and we're seeing it in the product too.
Cool. It's cool. It's great. And so last question for you. Is there any little nugget piece of advice that you would tell to Jon, who's drawing his ads to sell them?
Well, keep waking up and treat every day like a new day. I mean, I think that I've jokingly said that to people at the agency. Staying fresh in the business is part of it's forgetting, because there's a lot of pain in the business too. Your precious ideas get killed, right? And the key is not giving up. Resilience is one of the best tools we have as creatives, and I think for me, being resilient has been partly about forgetting the painful parts and embracing the great stuff you can do, right? There's always your next idea, your next project, and just be optimistic. So that's what I tell little Johnny.
Little Johnny.
Yeah. It's something I try and practice.
Yeah. Well, Jon, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, Joe.
It's been really great talking with you,
It's been
catching
fun.
up,
It's been fun.
learning a few things.